Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. Today's guest is Lisa Vroman.
Lisa Vroman is one of the longest running Christines in Phantom of the Opera history, performing the role both on Broadway and in San Francisco, with her phantoms including Brett Little, Hugh Panaro, Davis Gaines, and many others. Next to her time in Phantom, Lisa also starred in Kiss Me Kate, Aspects of Love, The King and I, Les Miserables, The Music Man, and Sweeney Todd, while also performing Christine in Kopit and Yeston's Phantom. Currently, Lisa focuses on concert work as well as a career as a vocal teacher with students from all over the world.
I hope you will enjoy the show.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. This is fun.
It is. What are you doing right now?
During the pandemic, I was teaching. I joined the voice faculty at the school called AMDA. I don't know if you've heard of it in New York. It's a 2-year program, and out here in Los Angeles, it's 4-year BFA. So it was just before the pandemic kind of hit us, and then we all went to Zoom, and all the kids went home, and so we had to figure out the time zones in your schedule.
Yes.
Differently it was. And the kids are like, oh, wait, I didn't know it was 2 hours. I thought it was 3, But it was, we did it, and I'm glad I had it. Thank God we have this this technology that we can connect. And because
Yes,
during that time was difficult.
It's why I was able to start this show, because when everybody started to do Zoom, I could reach out to people and start this.
Right. I mean, you have a group of friends, you have a love for theater, and it's just to talk about it and keep going. Otherwise, what do? We sit and we quit.
Yeah.
Oh, and look, I've been doing this a long time, and many of my friends in my age group, they just said, well, maybe it's time to retire. And I just something in me said I don't really feel like doing that yet. And I decided the teaching really helped, because it's everyone was freaked out. All of my concert work was gone. The kids had no more auditions, and they were all nervous. And I said, look, I'm nervous too. It's not just you. We've all lost everything. No one's doing anything. Let's just work on our voices. So when we get out of this and come back, we'll be better off. And that became the focus. And we, like any one-on-one meeting with your voice teacher, it's like 10% therapy. Because it's how we feel is what we reflect in our breath and our voice. And so I think I became very in tune with what they needed me to do and what they were doing for me. And I kept telling them that you're making me get up every day and try my best to inspire us to take a breath and sing, still not knowing what's going to come after. So it was really interesting how it sort of kept me in condition and reminded myself why I love what I do, instead of worrying about all the stuff that we always worry about that's ridiculous, or just things that we get in our own head and we live there for the rest of our lives. But I mean, it's a crazy town, but it reminds you of what's valuable. And I'm looking at I'm not starting out. I'm in the last quadrant. And so I'm kind of like, I want to make really good value of it too. So that's kind of
Talk to a singer, who's nearly 80, and he still has loads of plans that he wants to do, wants to produce stuff and create it. It's so beautiful to see that people remain so
right.
passionate about this.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to still do it when I'm 80. Somebody said, well, Tony Bennett sang until he was 95. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. Part of me does want to live by a lake and, not worry about it anymore. But right now, I think, because of the training that I've had, and I took care of my voice very well. And it's a really interesting conversation because of what musical theater needs right now, vocally. I I took care of myself well as an athlete, as a performing crafted artist, and my voice is still serving me. And I guess I'll just let it be the guide. I'll let it tell me when it doesn't want to work anymore. And that's just that physical thing. And so I didn't, people like, oh my gosh, you sound great. I'm like, well, I'm letting my voice do what it wants to do now, and letting it sing what it wants to sing, and how, and things change as you age. And it's look at me, I've got my teacher pencil right here. Can't help it. Because I do have some Zoom clients also still that are from other countries and across the country, and that we check in to coach crossover skills a lot, which I really enjoy, having them use their voice to the best of their ability. And, having that condition during the pandemic really helped me stay in shape. So I'm grateful to the students, and I tell them that all the time. I did a solo cabaret show last year, and I did it again this year about Easter time. And it was a solo show with a pianist friend of mine. I've done it 3 or 4 times. And when I first did it in New York at the place called the Green Room 42, it was kind of the first time I had done something like this, but some people from Cabaret Award in New York were there. And so they gave me a Bistro Award this year. So I went in and did the show again, and then did the awards ceremony. So I'm not sure I'm going to be jumping into the cabaret world, but it was really fun to do that and tell stories. And after so many years of, and certainly a long time in Phantom, having those fun stories to tell and to put it in a proper show, and, write it in and talk about your life and growing up and who influenced you and why. And I had friends that came, they said, we never knew a lot of this. I grew up with you and we didn't know. So it was fun. I enjoyed that a lot, but I still, right now, I'm focusing on mostly, I don't want to be away from home for 6 months. I don't want to do that anymore. That's really hard. And touring is just, that's very difficult physically. And I love being home. I married a lot later, and after Phantom was finished. And so my husband's a musician also. He writes all my orchestral orchestrations.
Lovely.
So, and we have we're having a ball being at home and making music together, and our house and our dog, and, doing all those things. But I'm still getting quite a bit of concert work. So that means you can go out and do one concert, make a pretty good salary, which is also good.
Yes.
And then come home and not have to work every day, not have to sing and use your instrument. And the teaching I do part-time in the school. Other than my clients, I do 2 full days a week at the university. So it's enough. It keeps me very busy. I like being with the students too, being with the college age, because it kind of makes me feel not that old and out of it. I really feel like I've been kind of reunited with what they need in this industry and what is really going on for them. And it's different than it was when we started. It's very different. So and I love them. They're hilariously funny. We laugh all the time. And hopefully I help them use their voices more ergonomically, and give them enough technique to make them sustainable in this musical theater world, which is very difficult right now for singers.
What do you think the biggest changes are compared from the past to now?
I think it's Phantom used to be the show where you went and was one of the only places you could hear women singing in their natural register. We weren't just belting in the same register as the men were belting high and the women were belting low, and it's the same sound physically. You heard a real soprano, you heard 2 real sopranos, you heard a chorus of opera people singing with sort of a classical technique. And now it's very pop and commercial driven. I kind of like to say that the kids are required to be extreme athletes with their voice before they're ready, before they're the athlete,
Oh, yes,
to get through that.
I noticed that too, because I heard interviewed another teacher. They said that people are getting certain parts far too young when their voices aren't ready.
Yeah, their voices aren't ready, because it's a matter of maturity. When you see the college boys and playing what we call our American football, they're their bodies are so lean. You know, the college boys are all muscle. And then when they get in the NFL and if they get drafted into the you know, commercial, professional sports groups, all of a sudden their bodies, they're able, maturity wise, to gain bulk. It's why opera singers don't, if they have a big voice, somebody with a huge instrument, it's they want to say, no, wait until your voice is ready to take the stress of singing those big Verdi and Wagnerian roles and Puccini. You can't really sustain that. A 21-year-old shouldn't be doing that. It's just a matter of, can your voice sustain that? Can your body, is it mature enough? It takes to your late 20s. Sometimes the bigger voices are later. They're not ready to go yet. And if they do too much too soon, they could damage something and not be able to have a career. And so that's why I think, getting to know your own voice. And I think I had a path of that. And I think it's why my voice is still working for me. And I feel like I didn't try to do too much with it. They said, oh, you want to learn how to belt? I'm like, I said, well, I can belt a little. I just don't put that on my voice because it tires me in a certain way. I am a soprano. I am, was trained classically. I cross over very well from style to style, but I know where my healthy place is, what my voice feels like when it wants to stay buoyant and stay healthy. I think that's the game for all these kids. And when they're seniors, I say, you are ready. I want them to be ready to work and ready to know what they can and cannot do, but it'll change all the time because they're only 22 when they're
Yes.
and 23 when they're graduating. Their voice still isn't mature yet. Let it do that. Don't worry about instability when you're 18, 19, 20. Like if something feels like you're yodeling in the middle of your voice, which everybody does. I yodeled through college. I mean, and my teacher was like, don't worry about it. You'll grow out of it. And he was right. Just keep singing well. Keep trying to do things, approach it, weight relationship on your voice correctly, and it will grow. I mean, there's a lot of people who put pressures on students in musical theater schools. They just belt, high, louder, louder. And honestly, they're doing them a disservice. I think not everybody sounds like Jennifer Hudson. Not everybody has a voice like Cynthia Erivo. Not everybody can belt like Stephanie Block. Now, it's just these are levels of maturity that are earned. So, and everyone's voice is different. And it seems like everybody wants them to sound the same, have this homogeneous pop sound. And I don't really value that very well. There's a lot of good singers. And the ones now that are doing, I mean, I've talked to my fellow ex-Christine, soprano friends. Some of them will just call and go, God, did you hear that girl sing? Blah, blah, blah. I would never work right now if we started out now. Because the industry wanted what we did at the time. So it's things change all the time. But I think the commercial sound, physical singing, belting, all of that has changed. It's become so pop driven. If you cannot do that at all, it's tricky in the business, I think.
It's sort of a shame because
oh
yeah, the pop sound is coming so close because a lot of musical fans I know, they came to musical theater because they didn't want to hear the pop sounds.
I know. I mean, I still, it's what I love too, but I try not to think like, oh, no one writes like they used to. Well, sometimes I feel like that's true.
Yeah.
So, but that makes me feel old. But I'm so thankful for all the years that I've been able to be with so many wonderful comrades who sang so beautifully. I mean, I was just given when I did my solo show, there were a couple of fans that gave me, so we have a present for you. And they gave me a flash drive that had sections of a whole show from San Francisco Phantom in the 90s that I had never seen before. I mean, it was just, and one of my favorite Rowells and good friend Christopher Carl and Frank D'Ambrosio and my dear friend Jenny Gould, who was Meg with me that whole 5 years and still a dear friend of mine. they had never seen themselves either. And so we put it on a private, Dropbox, and I sent it to my friends, and they were all just calling me going, I am crying right now. Because, it's something that you feel you've never seen yourself do that. Well, and a lot of people, and it's a really good show. And I thought, gosh, we were singing. Everybody sounded fantastic. And I was so proud of that particular company of people. We had a beautiful 5 years, and it's your family at that time. You go to work, you make music with your family, and you go home. And it's that was a great time. And I bought my beautiful home in Pasadena right when it finished. So I was able to afford a home from those 5 years, which was unbelievable. I'm so thankful that I was able to do that and have this great home. And then, of course, when I moved my boxes in, they called me and wanted me to go to they asked me if I would consider going to London to do Christine there. And I said, well, I moved my boxes in, and then that week I went to the pound after the gym and I got a puppy. And I was still unpacking boxes, and I thought I can't do this. It's too much, too much transition. And then a month and a half, like almost 6 weeks later, both Christines in New York got pregnant at the same time. So Sandy Joseph and I were on the phone going, how many do you want to do? I don't know. How many do you want to do? And I had the puppy. He was, 7 months at the time. I said, okay, I'll go, but they let us do 5 shows and 3 shows. So I said, oh, I'll do the 3. That's okay. That's enough for me. I had the dog also. I wanted to spend time with him. So we both went in for 9 months. We had a ball. It was great to be, and, to finally, after doing a show so long, you really want the payoff of doing it on Broadway. You really wanted to have that. And I went home, and a little time went by, not much. And I got a call from the office again, and Sarah Pfisterer, who had just gotten back in the show after being pregnant, got pregnant again. And she was like, okay, I give up. But, it's that time in your life. You want to do that too. You want to have a life too. And but she didn't expect it so soon. She had just gotten back in the show. And so they called again. And this time I went back and did 6 shows a week and took over. And it was almost 2.5 more years there. So the show really gave me many, many gifts, let's say, and longevity in the time. I don't know why I got on that long story. And after that, I went home. Did I go home? No, I was finishing in New York, and Hal Prince showed up and knocked on my door and said, hey, I want you to go back to San Francisco. And this is almost 10 years after we had we had done it. And I went, oh my God, you can't find anybody else. He goes, no, I want you to do it. You were the star there. And so it was an 8-week run. So I worked a contract where I did another 6 months. So I joined the tour again, left New York when I finished. I was ready to go. It was like, 9.5 years. I was like, I'm done. And I went, met them, Dayton, maybe, Ohio, just before San Francisco. And then we went there. I did a month in Seattle. And then after that was 9 weeks in Los Angeles. And so I got to live at home and do my last 9 weeks in sleeping in my own bed. And so that, and able to quit on my own terms. And it was such a, there's so much that's involved with that. If there's anything you want to ask or know about.
How did you first get started in the role?
Yeah, it's kind of a good one. It's a good story too. I don't know if I auditioned for them once before, maybe not. I was doing some things in New York, and it's timing. You have to be in the right place at the right time. And I think I went into audition, and then I got the more Yeston, the other version of Phantom, in 92 at the Casa Manana Theater in Fort Worth, Texas, and North Shore. They did up in Boston. They did a north of Boston. They did a co-production of it. So it was same story, but different music. You know, she's a seamstress rather than a ballerina, which was better on my feet. Lighter costumes. But it was, I had a ball, I was doing it, and I get a call back for Christine, but I had to finish my my dress rehearsal in Texas. We had a day off before they opened, or it was the last preview or something like that. I think it was a dress rehearsal, but they gave a day off. I flew up to New York. I sang for Hal Prince with 2 other people, and then I flew back down and opened the show the next day. And I found out that day that I was going to be doing the Lloyd Webber one. So I knew during it that I was going to move on, and they wanted me to join the tour that they opened. It was the Music Box tour when it opened in 92 in Seattle. But I auditioned with 2 other people. Now they were great. Everybody was great. One girl had, the hair, she was just beautiful. And then Tracy Shane, who was our first Christine ballerina, she had been a Cosette also, and just, a dear woman. And just, she looked like a Victorian cutout doll. She just was this porcelain beauty, and just beautiful in the role. And so I did her 2 show a week, and the other girl was, I just didn't take it. She didn't take the 2 show slot. Like, I wasn't offered originally, so she didn't take the job, and so I got the job. So here's where luck comes in to our long longevity in a show. Look, I don't have I didn't have that typical ingenue look, like they would say, oh, this, beauty queen kind of tip, that type thing. I have a very specific look, and Tracy, it's a lot of pressure, opening a show. It's nerve-wracking. And I think the last preview, it might have been a preview. I don't know if it was a preview or a big full dress. I can't remember because it's a long time ago. But at 5:00 p.m., and I hadn't been on stage at all because they were, teching the new production. I was just wandering around backstage trying to stay out of everybody's way, which is a lot in that show. I would climb up to the fly rail and hover over, able to see over the stage to find out depth of where she was landing when they were find out where I am in space in that perspective. And so I was doing my job, and 5:00, the stage manager called and said, how would you like to go on tonight? I went, you're kidding. I've had no rehearsal. I've been in my costumes because they build them on you, which is incredible experience. So I said, okay, let's go. He goes, what do you need? So we got to the theater, and I said, what do you need to do? I said, I think I need to climb up that ladder with my negligee and my heels with shoes with heels. You're climbing a rung ladder in heels. I mean, who thought of that? I wanted to try it in the dark so I could figure out how to get in that little box and pass 2 people and go out and come back and climb back down and get in the boat. That in the dark. So that was a pretty tricky physical thing. Frank and I worked out the kind of choreography when he has to grab her and sink her to the ground and think. We actually work out that moment by moment so no one gets hurt. It's like, like choreography. So we kind of worked on that, and the rest of it was like, let's just go for it. We're out of time. There's no time for a rehearsal. So I went on, and Hal Prince was still there with us rehearsing. He was out in the back of the house with the sound supervisor, who was also a friend of mine from Les Mis. And I guess what happened, I came out, my first outfit, and it did the first scene, and then you do the song "Think of Me," right? So we did that song, and my sound man friend the next day said, "Hey, here's what Hal did." He goes, "You come out." He goes, "Oh, I gotta get her to move that crown back because I was pressing my wig in a little bit and my face is very narrow," which he told me later. And I said, "Oh, my face is narrow, really?" He goes, "No, put it in here so the wig shape shows and it makes your face, really look more symmetrically round." It's a little, wig trick. So, but the sound guy said, "You sang Think of Me." Hal Prince turned to him and he said, and I quote, Hal turns to the sound man, he says, "Jesus Christ, she's fantastic. I'm going to have her open the San Francisco company." That was it in that moment. So how lucky was I that Tracy just felt like she needed the night off to get ready for the first audience or the opening.
Yes.
And there I was in front of him. Had I not gone on until later, like would have happened naturally, he would have been gone because he left before opening nights all the time. So he happened to be there watching me, and that was the difference. That's where luck comes in. He was sitting there. So and for the next 10 years, he was my guy, and so whatever he wanted, I just said yes. Because I was really tired when they asked me to finish the last 6 months back in San Francisco. I wanted to stop. And he came in to my dressing room in New York and said, I want you to go. And I'm like, okay, I'll do anything for you. He left the room and I was like, oh no. Why did I say yes? Because you just say yes when someone's been that good to you and he's given you such a gift. So to say I'm grateful for his influence and his support is, but there's that's just one role and 10 years of my life, but it left me with feeling so good about what I had done and that my voice stayed in good shape because I was older than a lot of the other Christines when I started. So and my voice was already pretty much fully mature by the time I started her. So I was able to maintain very easily vocally.
What sort of advice did Hal give you during your time?
Well, it's interesting. He's very black and white, and if he sees something wrong, he's going to just speak up about it right away. And I remember in rehearsal saying to him, just asking him one question, and I said, I just want to ask one thing. Why do I wake up in the boat and my first impulse is to run and rip his mask off? And he went, "Oh my God, are you one of those? Are you one of gonna figure out everything?" And he just said, "I can't tell you why. That's just what is going to happen." But he said, it's an impulse. And so who can explain that, in reality? He goes, if you believe it and if you just play it as an impulse, the audience will buy it. And I stopped. He goes, "No more questions like that." I said, "I'm done." So I think that was the greatest advice. He just wanted me to go to work hard and do what I did. He was always incredibly supportive. So he knew that I was, and I felt like I was just going in every day, doing my job as best I could. And it's difficult day after day after day to reach, that standard of what you want to do, what you want to, how storytelling, you want it to work. And I loved the job, but I was kind of relieved when it was over too, because it was very physical and very tiring. Hard on your back over and over. It's like that repetitive stress points. And I wanted to sing some other things too. So I wanted to, and you cannot pretend you're 18 forever, right?
How do you feel when you play Christine? What's your thought on her character?
Well, I think it changed over those 10 years, certainly. Like we were talking about, your body matures, but emotionally you are growing older. You are maturing also. Life is happening to you outside of that show. And you're not people don't stay the same. Your voice feels different all the time, and so does your a combination of all those experiences. I think my goal in the beginning was to just pace it and to do what I was doing and hit my marks and sing well and go through the show. I think being consistent was very important to me, giving her as much dimension as possible. it happened organically. What I learned from doing it at the beginning to where I finished, I felt like she grew with me. I tried to give her as much dimension as in point of view, staying in the constraints of what we do. You know, you can't go off and do something, oh, let's do something different. No, you have to do what you are. The blocking is there, the period dictates a certain thing. You know, how I'm using my voice is still important, but the color of it, my voice informs my emotion. So if that grows, it's going to slightly change the dimension of the character that I have. I want her to be real. I wanted to like her too. I don't think I liked her as much in the beginning as I did by the end. You know, I thought, God, she's kind of whiny. Wow, she's a codependent, you know, Victorian, blah, blah, blah. She just, but then you have to learn to love that person. That's yourself, right? You're bringing that to it. You know, why are you going to play somebody you don't like? Why you have to find that sympathy in her, find those levels of what makes her reality viscerally dimensional. I have to justify every breath I take and that emotion that comes with it. But it grew over time. I had a friend come and see me. He just saw me, wrote me a note. He said, you know, I remember seeing you in San Francisco when you started. I came back to see you years later, like in 2003, in New York. And he said, I sat there going, wow, this role had just gone. Like, and I didn't really feel, I don't know if I really felt that, but I was very solidly on the ground with her. I loved what she was going through, and I felt like I wanted her to grow and learn something and grow into, like, I wanted people to leave the play and say, she's going to be okay. She's growing into this woman later that's going to survive and be able to sustain and live and learned her lessons and who she is. And it happens in the second act for me. I kind of figured out those moments of that as it was going along. And I guess it might be different for everybody, those moments, but I think the wishing scene is where was the change for me as an actress. And I was given the gift of realizing how important it was when I had first started. We were in Portland on tour. So I was just doing 2 shows a week, blah, 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 blah. My shows were Thursday, 3 shows a week, actually. Thursday, which the company called Vroman Thursdays. Vroman Thursdays. And they would try to sneak my name into the first chorus. Hear Romans now and tremble. Remember that first one? They would, hear Romans now and tremble. Da, 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 da. They would say, and the stage manager would be like, okay, watch your diction on the word Romans, please. They would just do that for fun. And then I did 2 shows on Sunday. I remember our second stop was Portland, and it was Father's Day. And I started the show, didn't kind of feel anything, and I didn't expect this. I got to wishing, and because I had lost my dad passed away when I was 20. So I start that song and it just came up, right?
Yes.
Because it was Father's Day. That's like, it was involuntary. All of a sudden I was fighting to get through it. It was just like this. And I went, whoa. And the second show I figured, it's not the same thing. Once an event happens like that, you're like, wow, that's what's going on here. She's not running away. She's going there to learn something and to find herself. I used to do this all the time. My dad was an undertaker too. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
So when he passed away, I'd go to college, I'd come back, I would go get a little, bottle of scotch and go up to the cemetery and sit with him, give him a drink, take a drink, have a drink with my dad, and sit there and talk to him. I did the same thing. I had forgotten that until I got into that scene in that particular day. Isn't that wild? I knew it all, but it was Father's Day, and it just, it took me by surprise, like many emotions do. But I learned from that. After that, I learned, wow, that's where she needs the strength from him. That's where she kind of begins to get up on her self-worth again and start to mature vocally. What do I want? What do I need? All those things that we do when we grow up. But that scene is where the transition happens. Help me say goodbye. She's saying to this, I want to be stronger. I want not to be shackled emotionally anymore. I don't want it. She chooses it. So, is it modern in a way, heroine wise? Like, oh, I'm the strong heroine now. No, it's just that she's learning it about herself, that she got to have strength. It's the first time she probably felt that in her life. Victorian women were not allowed.
It's
They
true.
were expected. They were all those things of the day. So if I see a Christine that acts, oh, no, I'm the hero now in the last scene, I don't like it. It's too modern. That's not the point. The point is she's becoming aware of my choices and that he's just a man. And it's not like, oh, haha, I'm strong now. It just makes sense. It's like I'm very sensitive to what women went through in that period. So I think that I tried to ride that line of how strong she could, how much she could learn. And but I wanted to, it's like the growth pattern. She can't be, the heroine of the story at the end. She has to be on her way to being a healthy person, and to have survived that. And because of who her father was, he obviously taught her something. She loved him. And I think I really understood that. And I remember Hal came in to see me do the show once, and he came backstage. He goes, I don't know what you're doing in that scene, but it's amazing. But I didn't like go into it. It's I just said, well, it's a scene I kind of get. And whether people know my story or not, that's my job. I feel like on stage, my storytelling has to be, the stakes have to be high because of how I'm feeling. And I feel like that was a moment that was, I couldn't wait to get to that moment in the show. I couldn't wait till Think of Me was over. And you could take off those toe shoes because they squish your feet.
Do you have any memories of phantoms you worked with?
Oh, all of them. I love them all. They're just, because you're like brother and sister. Or as Frank goes, my stage wife, lovely. They're just, and you to be kind to each other every day. And Davis Gaines was my first Phantom on tour. The tour when we started in San Francisco. He was, and we had been Lancelot and Guinevere together before that.
Oh.
We have sung a million concerts together. So I knew him really well, and no one made me giggle more than this man. And in rehearsal, because we had already done the tour and he had already done LA, we got in rehearsal and we couldn't stop laughing. One day, Hal is like this, I trust you two will be able not to stop laughing once the show starts. Because everything he did made me laugh. And so I love this man. So it was really great to do the first few months of San Francisco with him. And then Frank came in from the tour. So we already had known each other. And Frank is just, Italian and fun and hilariously funny. Man, and an amazingly hard worker, beautiful voice, very Italianate sounding. And, we all fought for it. You have to every day. People see it and they think, we got to get back up and do it again and again and again, and feel like you're telling that story to people for the first time. Really, really, that's our job. And it's really important. It's not about us. It's about how you guys respond to it. This weekend, another little story. Everything's a story, isn't it? I'm sorry. And then in New York, it was Howard McGillen for the most of the time I was there, who was just, he's one of the best men in the world. So too bad to cover it up. All these people are so handsome. And you're like, what a shame to cover it all up because they're beautiful. And Howard's just lovely, lovely colleague. My last 8 weeks was Hugh Panaro's first 8 weeks as the Phantom. And Hugh and I had done a show together we did a little night music in Philly in 1987 together. So that was kind of cool to be with a great friend for my last 8 weeks. And then I went back to the tour and for 6 months, and I got to be with Brad Little. Well, Brad and I also, the pictures are on my website. We did Kiss Me Kate after that. And it's hard to really say that. When I got into that show, I knew it was my last 6 months. Maybe part of it was that, but Brad and I just clicked in a big, fuzzy, high-end chemistry way. He wanted to do that show so badly. He called me every day and go, "How you feeling today? I only get you for 6 months. You can't take off. You can't take off." But we just got along. We wanted the same things. We have a kind of drive in a similar way. And he's my brother, and I just love this man. And so I called him in 2008 when I was about to go do Kiss Me Kate at the Glimmerglass Opera Company, which was affiliated with New York City Opera, used to be. And Brad said, "Oh, I'm not an opera singer." I said, "No, I've been auditioning with all these opera singers. Please, you come and do this with me." Because his voice is huge. Because we had no microphones and 50-piece orchestra, opera chorus who sang and it was it was no microphones, whole show, old style, right? And that show, it was one of the most favorite shows I've ever done, because I was working with one of my best friend, and I knew it was great, and I knew that we were good together. And so that was the gift of Phantom too, to have all these incredible people in your life, and to have adored them forever. But the stories that are involved are just hilarious. There was the time sometimes the fog doesn't really, the dry ice doesn't all evaporate, and we have rubber on our shoes, so it becomes like a skating rink. And in San Francisco, the fog would come in and come out, and sometimes it would be a skating rink. And there was one time when Frank came in the last scene chasing me, and he went sliding into home plate. He bounced up in a second, right? Ooh, he was up on his feet again. And we went on we were off stage just howling with laughter because it was so funny. He goes, "Did anybody notice?" Or there was a time, I kind of tell this in concert, where that white dress I ran on with that white dress across the black stage, and my hem probably got stuck on a loose screw at the bottom of one of the candelabras on the side. So I ran across the stage, and I could hear, and I looked back, and it looked like a roll of toilet paper. Like the hem had started it just stuck. And Frank's off stage looking at me like, and I just yanked it, and it loosened, and I just stuffed it, in the back where you couldn't see it after that. But we were also laughing a lot about that. That was fun. And Davis and I had to walk on water once with the boat. Didn't work. We got out down the ladder, and the stagehands were all there. They're like, "The boat's dead." And we went, "Okay," middle of the show, so we just had to walk it. But, you realize when the fog is over the stage, you can't see the stage floor. And the trap doors are going like this, open, close, with the candles and all that. So we had to take the same path at the same time, or we could have probably broken our ankle, or something. So that was a little scary during it, but that was also funny after. And I have one big story. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
It has to do with, he was also a Phantom after, but Gary Maurer was a Phantom, and his beautiful wife, Beth, who I'd known since I got out of grad school, and she was still in high school being taught by my best friend. She was Christine understudy in New York. And when they had 2 babies, and twice in 35 years, this happened where the Raoul got sick during All I Ask of You and left the stage. The first time it was Rebecca Luker. I don't know who was, Davis Gaines, I think he was the one that left the stage, and she was kind of wandering around. It was early in the show, I think. I don't know when, but this time, I'd done the show already for, 7.5, almost 8 years. So nothing really phases you. So Gary sang, he sounded like this. Let me be your freedom. Let me be your light. And I was kind of like, Scooby-Doo when he goes, ooh, what is going on? I hadn't seen him all day yet. And I thought, oh, he doesn't sound good. He sang his third set of lines. You're safe. No one will find you. Your fears are far behind you. And ran down the trapdoor steps. So it's my line, right?
Yeah.
He's just leaving the stage down this, and I am at the railing, and I went, all I want is freedom, a world with no more night, and you always beside me to hold me and to hide me. He's not here. What do you do? So I was staring down and I saw towels flying by, and I realized that he is sick. He's really sick, and he wasn't going to come back, right? So I just, hold me and do hide me. I just sang his line so sweet. I kept going. I get to the moment where he's going to say Christine. Anywhere you go, let me go too. That's all I ask of. I just skipped Christine. Say you love me, love me. That's all I ask of. I wandered across the stage in that big cape, just sang the rest of his line, kept singing. Went center stage, kissing part, right?
Yeah.
I just wandered back center, and I realized, oh, he loves me. I twirled with that big cape, so it went out, really far. Just in time for anyone. Go, let me go do. That's all I ask of you. And so I sang the rest of the duet. And then the music starts again, right? That little and in my head I'm going, oh crap, I've got to keep going. And when my cue happened, I went, I must go. They'll wonder where I am. I must find Raoul. And then I went down the stairs. So I got through it. The conductor's looking at me like, please stay on stage. Please stay on stage. And I could see my stage managers, in the corner. See my friend Barbara and Craig's over there. The PSM came out and they're talking. I see her look at me. She's like this. And I'm just looking at her like, what are you going to do? And then they burst into laughter. I could see them. I'm like up there singing. I'm like, what the hell? I get off stage and I'm like, okay, y'all, what's so funny? What was so funny? She goes, oh my God, Craig came out and said, tell Lisa to stay on stage. Just tell her to stay on stage no matter what. So we don't have to stop the show. And she goes, and I looked at you and you looked at me and I looked at Craig and I went, I got news for you. Vroman ain't going anywhere. And that made them laugh. But it's like that game of keep the ball in the air when something does happen. Because when I left the stage, Gary was still getting sick. Because when babies get sick, parents get it. They do. I know. So no foul. I had two friends in the audience. They went running to the bathrooms to see if anybody was, they said there was not a peep from the audience. Nobody even realized anything was wrong. Isn't that crazy? They probably said, oh, did they change that? But I did do something kind of bad. I don't know if I don't really tell this sometimes, but the show's over. So his understudy was also blonde. It is, but like 5 inches shorter. And so second act's gonna start. Understudy, Brian got in his Raoul jumpsuit, for the masquerade, and we're backstage waiting to flip on. And I looked at him and I went, wow, it's like we're doing an episode of Honey, I Shrunk the Raoul. And it was bad timing and it just came out. I didn't mean to make us laugh, but he started laughing. We could barely get the words out in the next scene. And that wasn't really professional. But it was funny. And it just kind of, so much was going on. I just said it before I realized that it probably was bad timing on my part because it made him laugh. And we both giggled through the whole. So good thing we were giggling anyway in the scene because it was funny. But those things happen, like real life things happen and it makes good stories. It does. That's, but we, like I said, we fought for it. We wanted to make the show as good as possible each time. And there's days you were just dead tired, but it was still your job to get up there and do it. And I felt really good about, most every performance that I did. It was a long time. And again, you're grateful, but there's been some things since then that I've been so happy to do. Like I got to do Marion the Librarian and The Music Man with Shirley Jones playing my mother. And that's like coming full circle with you're a child loving her in that movie, and all of a sudden, poof, you're doing her role and she's your mom. I mean, that was one of the best things that you get to do. And these little things that shows and concerts that just are little gems that really have meant a lot over the years. And so I have very few regrets about path. I think I know it's been incredibly lucky. And how much longer? I mean, who knows?
We also did the Sweeney Todd concert. I think David Gaines was there too again.
Davis, there we go. That was fun because it was, here you are with your best friend again. That was a scary one because we're live theater people. We weren't used to having cameras following you around like this, on stage, and Boom in the House following you. I found that incredibly stressful. And even that Sondheim was there though. So that, getting to know, that was because it was San Francisco Symphony. I knew them very well. And I'd sung with them a number of times. So I knew, and I'd done Christine for 5 years in town. So everyone knew me there. So that made it a little calmer, but they had 3 concerts and they recorded them all so they could take the best of for the video. But when you're not the star of the show, you're lower on the totem pole. They're not going to bring you in to do any fixing, let's say. So the first one, my outfit was too bright for the cameras, so they had to tea dye the whites down so it wouldn't reflect so much. Fine for concert, but the TV was too blaring. And we thought the second one went well, and then the third one, the sound guy comes running around to Davis and the show's already begun. And he comes and goes, "Oh, guess what, you guys? We didn't get any of your audio feed last night because some of the signals were cuckoo."
Nice.
Yeah, this is literally a minute and a half before I have to walk out and sing Greenfinch and Lindbergh. And I realized that this is the only shot we have. And we both were like you just want to throw up. You're feeling like amazingly stressed. And I can hear it when I get out, and my voice, I felt like I was choking, and how are they? I was literally couldn't get my breath to calm down because it was very nerve-wracking. Sang the first line, and then the second line she sings has an F natural. It sits on this F, and it's, "Oh, can you jubilate? Oh, can you jubilate?" And you have to take a hollow, kind of a centered breath to sing that phrase. So I was nervous, and all of a sudden I let my breath drop into my whole body, and I was good to go after that. So I feel like having a technique that allowed me to remind myself where my breath needs to be saved my life in that show. Because if you don't know how to calm your breath down, and where's your, okay, here it is. I felt like I grounded myself in my breath. And so I summoned the strength to get through the whole thing. But it was a little stressful there, but Sondheim was lovely and fun. And he was convinced that I should be a blonde. I said, no. He goes, "Oh my God, your skin looks so creamy. You want to come out in the truck and look?" And I'm like, no, I don't. Because if I don't like it, I'll be in my head. I don't want to look. I don't want to look. Yeah, that was a little bit of a thrill. Like I said, that's the icing on the cake for this life. You get to do little gems like that. And, your family's proud. And except for my Aunt Mary, who was just like, "Oh, honey, you could star on Broadway." And she was like, "Oh, honey, I wish you could just get in a soap opera." I'm sorry, Aunt Mary. Disappointed her. That's what she thought was really making it, you know, the TV soap operas. But I said, no, Mary, that's probably not going to happen for me. Sorry. But I was kind of proud at, when I hear sections of like the whole show, the last 8 weeks with Hugh, one of his first shows in '03 is on, people put it up on YouTube, but I was proud of the fact that my voice felt so healthy at the end of my 10 years. I listened to it, wow, that's still, I'm still singing well, which made me happy, and that at the end of 10 years of singing one role, my voice still felt good and buoyant because I had some things to do after it that I needed to stay healthy for.
I think you were on the original production of Aspects of Love or a later one?
Well, it was originally in London.
Yes.
And they brought the same four, Michael Ball and Anne Crum came over to do it, the four leads, and then we were their covers in that. Kathy Roe McGowan, who was the role that I covered her, and she had a boyfriend at the time that was in A Few Good Men. That was the play. It was kind of like down the street, and she wanted to see him do it, and it was the first 6 months of ours. She was gonna take off, and so she calls me. She goes, "Hey, do you want to go on 4th of July? Because I want to go see my boyfriend's play." So I got to go on for her in that show, and then I left. I had done Les Mis before it. I'd left Cosette, came back, did Aspects of Love for 6 months, and then they wanted me to go back out and do Fantine for a year and a half. I did that, which was a struggle because it's a vocally very demanding for a high voice.
Yes.
So I was, I said to them, I'm not going to be 100% because I'm not going to do that to my voice. And Christine came after that time, about 9 months after I finished that. I went out, I started doing Christine. So it was a very good lesson in using the lower part of your voice too, and trying to save yourself, having your technique serve you as well. And, did I have the same kind of voice as everybody else? No, but I did what my voice wanted to do with it. Didn't try to, sing as loud as the other belters or whatever, but I loved the role. I loved who she was. Most of the ingenues that you play all your life, they're very two-dimensional. A lot of them, you have to give the dimension to them. And Fantine was she's playing a prostitute. She's on the floor. She's angry. She's dying. I mean, we couldn't get enough of it. It was just her story. Her story was I'm a very physical person, and I loved being her. I loved her young woman fight in her story and redemption. And I mean, I loved the character. I just wish the music had been a little higher. Why does it have to be so low? But it was a good lesson for me too. As an actress, it gave me a role to really sink into. And after that, I got to New York, and David Caddick, who was the British, absolutely handsome music director, they called my agent. They said, "We don't know what to do with her. We want to bring her in for Christine, but we want to bring her in for Grisabella too." And I was like, I don't know. But they were thinking they were looking at, I just did Fantine, so maybe so I went in and sang Grisabella, and they said, "We want it to be more strident." It was big enough. They want it to be more edgy on top. And I said, "You know what? I'm probably not going to do that. My voice doesn't want to make that sound naturally. And what I would have to do physically, it would be a little bit," so I'm kind of not willing to push my voice to that point. And I had an audition for Christine the next day, and David goes, "You're right. See you tomorrow." And so I auditioned, and then I went to Fort Worth to do the other more Yeston, and then that's when they called me in for a callback to see Hal. And then the next 10 years were there, so it's just, everybody's path is so different in this. I have so many great girlfriends that have been incredible Christines, just beautiful, beautiful girls, bringing to it so much color and texture and beautiful singing, and we're all kind of proud of it, and proud that we had these voices that were able to be used, and beautiful actresses, and it's a good group. I remember we went to the last show and went to the incredible party. It was an incredible party. So we and it just seems like the 7 or 8 of us that were in the I call it old school Christines. We all ended up in the library at the end of the night, having another drink, going, we were good. It was great to see them, and beautiful girls. I've got a picture of all of us in a row, which is funny. When I left the show, finally, at that show, there were like 6 Christines there with me at the show. We have a picture at the party after with all of us in a row, which is great. People who had done it before, and friends of yours, and just great girls. We shared that same experience. So it was kind of great to be in that little club. And every time something kind of would come up, I get a call from a few of them every once in a while, or a text saying, "Can you believe that?" Just in our little secret club. Our secret. We don't want to let anybody else in, but it's fun. But that's what theater gives you too. Hal gave me. You asked about advice. He said, when I left the show, I said, "Oh, I'm ready to go, but it's just leaving these people." He goes, "You know what, Lisa? Theater is a series of goodbyes. Your theater life. Many of them are delightful, but it's still a goodbye. It's the path. It shouldn't stay stagnant. It's always moving forward. And when you think of the goodbye not as a negative, and sometimes they are. I mean, it's just that's life. Sometimes the relationship doesn't work out. Same as a job. They're not all great, but it informs who you are, but you move on, and your path takes another turn. And it's I've got 40 years of good stories too. And right now the teaching thing has come in, and it's been like I have 2 universities that are having me come in for 2 weeks to do a series of master classes in their musical theater and opera departments. So I will work with kids on all of their skills and try to try to get them in their head, what kind of singer actor am I, and what are my goals, and where's my voice going to take me? So I mean, that's fun for me to go in for a couple of weeks and see a new group of young singer actors and you can't stop their desire, even though the business is kind of hard right now. They still want to sing. They want to get better. They want to learn their craft, and it's gives me hope for the future of our industry too.
Absolutely. It's glad that especially people from the business are teaching themselves now that so many things will be continue in the future.
I hope so. I mean, I bring not only the legacy, the kids know I said, I'm an open book. If you want to know something, ask me. I'll give you my opinion. But I can teach you where to look, but I can't tell you what to see, because you're going to have to do that for yourself. I want them to create, by the time they graduate, to be a questioning artist of themselves and how people around them, to be, self and critical, but in a constructive way on their instrument. How does it feel today? Take that effort scale and learn where their voice should feel to feel sustainable. And as they listen to other people, be able to dissect what's good, what's bad, and develop their own, what they love, what they don't. And they will. And a lot of them, I said, I'm no longer your teacher, but I'm going to be your colleague. That's going to happen. I was able to do a production of The Fantastics last fall out here in the desert. It was I offered it by this smaller company, which is fantastic. And I had done The Fantastics a few times when I was young, but this was the same sex version, so it was 2 mothers instead of 2 fathers, and then the gay boys. So I had my dream of a gay son, and I got to play a real hippie mom, like off the grid, watering her plants, loving vegetables. Ooh, and as my son said, clearly I'm homeschooled. I said, oh yeah, clearly. But it was so much fun to do a play for 5 weeks and not. But I was ready to finish when it was done. But I loved it. I loved being with a group of comrades. It's, being when you're doing concerts, you're with either one other person or you're the only soloist. And the orchestra's fun, the musicians around you, but it's basically you. In a show, though, how great to have those moments off stage with your colleagues. And I love that community. I do. And it was a shot in the arm to be able to do it a little bit again. I don't want to do a show all the time. I don't think anymore. I don't want to be away from home that long. 6 weeks. 6 months. Just not interested. I like the short term stuff is fun. And there's a lot of regional things to do. If I've hit most of the things that I've wanted to, there's only one left, I think, so far.
Which one?
Which one I hope, I don't care if it's in concert or wherever, but I'd love to do Margaret, the mother in Light in the Piazza.
Oh yes, it's beautiful.
It's what my voice wants to do right now. That's what it sounds like, that it's easy, it's where it sits, and I love the character, I love the period, I love the costumes. And I just think it suits me, and so I'm actively looking for kind of a chance to do that before it's too late, which it very well may be, but who knows? But I'm gonna give it a go if I can find something. Who knows? That's the chance you take. I'm learning it now anyway, just to keep myself moving forward. But it's to have something to progress to and look forward to. It'll be fun.
Do you have any message for theater fans?
For theater fans, keep listening. We need people to love what we do and to ask questions. And if there's not that support, we have nothing to do, right? And during the pandemic, everyone got very used to watching things digitally. And all of a sudden you are live and you realize there's that visceral emotional reaction to what you are witnessing in time. It's not the same as watching it on Zoom or watching it on a pre-recorded event. It's in front of you and it's a live living thing. You're in that moment with that show. It's cathartic, and that's what we need people to be supportive of live singing in theater, live work, to get up, come see it. It's not the same. And I worry about music education and the value of a family that will come and witness things together, right? So they have music and art in their lives. The pandemic was scary. I'm not saying it wasn't, but we healed ourselves by watching our favorite art, didn't we? You did.
Yes.
Same thing. So the first responders saved us, but we are the second responders. That's that wave of healing our emotional life. Our society cannot live without it. We need our art. We need our music. We need all of that to make us feel human. So I wish and hope that I don't think that'll ever die. Can't. So we, the almighty dollar seems to be the what goal everybody thinks, oh, my happiness is how much money I have, and it's not. I think it's how you feel about yourself is what allows you to still get up, even though the world is falling apart and crappy, and the news every day makes you want, it's insanity. But I can listen to something or take a breath and sing, and I can feel better. I can heal myself. And I know I can, by my voice, do that for other people. I know I'm aware of that power that we all have to do that. The stories I have of people, there's a couple of them that I remember a family coming in from a farm with a dad who put his jacket on and it didn't fit. He couldn't button it, and like the sleeve was up to here, but they came off a farm and they saved their money. They were in a farmland out in the Bay Area. And they drove in. All four of them saw the show. I get a letter from the mom, or I saw them and they waited outside for us to come out to thank everybody because their 10-year-old and their older child, they just had a ball together. They were thrilled. So I remember talking to them outside and talking to the 10-year-old, and he's blah, 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 asking questions. And I always greeted the kids, after that show. I just loved it. the next year, and I got a letter. She said, oh, he was just so enraptured. He goes, okay, Mom, we're going to the opera every year, every summer. So they saved their money again all year long. They came into the summer after the San Francisco Opera was doing a production of La Boheme, and they had 4 different casts so they could run it every day, right? Very
Yes.
smart. 4 young casts of singers who got the chance to get that credit. It was great. They went to see La Boheme. And so I guess I knew this because the mother wrote me another letter because her son was now 11. And he said, I just wanted to let you know that my son wanted me to write you and say that we went to see the opera again, an opera. We went to see La Boheme at San Francisco Symphony, opera. We loved it. But as we came out the door, my son looked at me and he goes, well, that was really good, but it sure wasn't Phantom of the Opera. Don't tell him, but how sweet that they wrote.
Yes.
I have, piles of great letters of response from adults and children and how it affected them. And you figure out that that's your job. That's your job. That's what you do for people. And that's what you fight for. You just have to. And there's little reason to do it otherwise. Glory doesn't really pay bills. And it's a shallow thing to go for. And am I thrilled that I've been able to do a lot of good stuff? Yeah. But I mean, to touch people like that has been really a great thing in my life. But and the kids' responses are just, I've got letters from 9-year-olds that said, I wanted to be Christine until I saw that you had to kiss the Phantom and the Round, so forget it. Or one girl that said, is it gross to kiss the Phantom, or is Frank the kind of guy that's gross to kiss with or without the mask? She was like 11. I read this aloud to Frank. He's like, I said, if she only knew how handsome you were. But I mean, just hilarious little responses that we all kind of share with each other backstage that made it seem like a real life job. That's always changing. The audience is always changing. You can't get into a rut. And if you are, take time off, rest yourself. No one wants to, we all know what it feels like to feel burnout with something. But it's a choice too. It's if you feel that coming on, if something in life is just too heavy, you got to take that time and get back in when you can be free of it and get your job done. So, I'm a workaholic, so I came kind of easily. I know it's a big surprise, right?
You also did one operetta, I believe.
Well, I've done operetta and opera. I've dabbled back and forth. During the early 2000s, I was at Utah Opera doing all the Gilbert and Sullivan stuff and having a ball with those people. But there's a couple of operas that I've been able to do. One in 2009, I did Regina, which is Mark Blitzstein, was based on Lillian Hellman's play The Little Foxes. And she was part of his team writing the libretto for it. So it seems like a play. And I got to play Aunt Bertie in it, who you come to find out she's kind of the only aristocratic character, and the carpetbagging family come in and married her. It's just after turn of the century, after war was over, and it's a time where they were coming in and taking up the plantations because they were all ruined and in that era, and or they wanted to steal them, and she was abused by this guy that the brother of Regina, who she married, and drank. And you find out she was an alcoholic in the last scene. And some of the music is so viscerally powerful. And I loved playing her because I kind of call myself an ingenue, not so new. But this is the character you had to believe that she was this little, ingenue character growing up and bred for that. And then all of a sudden she's 38 and miserable. And you realize it later in the play. And she's still finished in a certain way. And still buoyant. And I loved playing that character so much. I could have done that one again and again. great challenge, and the music was just absolutely beautiful. But it's a piece that not many people know. It just was one of my favorites.
What are some other of favorite roles of yours?
Well, Kiss Me Kate, doing Mary the Librarian, definitely that. My City Opera debut was Rosabella in The Most Happy Fella, Frank Lesser, and that was also a just gloriously fun time. Not only making the debut there, but having that opera orchestra again, and the singing was off the charts. And it's a great role. She's a three-dimensional person. She's a girl that it's Last Chance Charlie. She's like, oh, this guy invited me up. Oh, what the heck? I have nothing to lose. My life sucks. Let me go. And then it ensues from there. It's a great story. But like I said, I love Piazza. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. I'd look forward to that. I think hopefully, keep my fingers crossed for that to be upcoming. But there's some concert work that I have felt really just had an incredibly great time in. One of those was Disney's 75th celebration, and I got to sing and dance a medley. Well, in the first act, I did a segment as Snow White that they had released, played with the Hollywood Orchestra, and it was the I'm Wishing sequence with the chorus, and I was in a big gown, and I'm singing that. And then at the end of the act, I got to do a sequence from Mary Poppins with Dick Van Dyke playing Bert, doing his thing. And I mean, you're Hollywood Bowl. I don't know if you know that venue. It's open air, and it can seat like 16,000 people. Place was packed, and we did the first part of the medley, and the chorus is in back of us. We're doing Jolly Holiday. Do you know that number from?
Yes.
So it's a jolly holiday with you, Bert. A jolly, jolly holiday with you. And then that little goofy step they do. So we're in the rehearsal, and he goes, hey, there's this little goofy step we used to do. And I'm like, I know the goofy step. I've been doing it since I was really little. And he goes, there's a 13-bar break. Do you want to do a little, dance? I'm like, uh-huh. So for the audience, you're watching Dick Van Dyke, and you're crazy. And he's 77 at the time. So it was like 2001, I think. He 77 or 78, and he was just the best. And he said, but he hadn't moved yet. And so they're all waiting. And we got to that point, and we came out from the microphones and linked arms and went with our knees, a little soft shoe. And the audience started like a bomb went off. They started screaming. And I'm just thinking, they just are jealous. Because I mean, I am singing and dancing with Dick Van Dyke. Did it get better than that? No, ever. I mean, it was that one time of joy, just to be. I should go. I could just. I'm like in that audience. You don't have to know who I am, but you know that I am a lucky girl right now. But it was really a joy, and he was fantastic, really fun, and so those little one-off events that you get to do. And it becomes that great memory and great story, and the things that make me happy that I've been able to survive this career still. And knock on wood, is it over? I don't know. So. But the teaching part, like I said, that just continues that sensation of keeping us responsible and going forward. And I have a lot of friends who teach, and they're all unbelievably valuable, and I don't want them to stop because they have so much to offer. But like even doing this thing, if someone can grab one little bit of inspiration from some leg of story, maybe it'll stir them to go, oh, I want to go study that for a minute. Oh, I want to think about, it's what we do. It's a great vocation. I'm, glad I'm teaching, so I cannot deny that joy of people getting into this business and doing it.
Must be so rewarding to see people grow, and
it is incredible. I don't have kids either, so it's for me. The first time I graduated a senior, It was very, very emotional, and very proud of them and all the work they did, and and hoping that you gave them what they needed to get going. There's that too. It's not a perfect science, singing. There's a lot of, I love the science of it. I love pedagogy, and I love all of that little detail. But until it's their breath that they're taking, not yours. You can't tell them what to feel. They have to learn that. The notes are somebody else's, but the breath, the timing, how they feel, it's theirs. That they have to figure out how to get there with that, like we all do. So I had to learn that with Christine. I had to learn, how am I gonna, where's her journey? And it just evolved naturally as I matured, I think, also. And that's the lesson, but it never stops. It's never over. It's a lifetime thing. There's that time when you're in your 20s and you're like, oh crap, I'm a singer. Ugh. Oh no, what am I gonna do? How am I ever gonna make a living? Everybody goes through that part. And then all of a sudden, things kind of, like those rock and roll lights, those robo lights, they're going like this all over the stage, and then all of a sudden they go, they come together like a lightsaber. Your direction focus does too. And all of a sudden you get in your 30s and like things seem a little clearer because your voice is ready. And so that's part of it. I think it's part of it.
Thank you so much for your wonderful time.
No, thank you for your time. I mean, I obviously enjoy the industry, and I love talking about the voice and what it can do. And and again, it's just, I tell my students too, it's my experience. That's all. It can't, it's what happened. Am I relieved that I'm at this end and I still have, I'm able to still do? There's things that happen along the way that are unbelievably hard to deal with in your life. That's just naturally what's going to happen, and family stuff and all of that, and your friends, and there's heartbreak, but I think the thing that heals us all and keeps us going forward. And it's, that party, that Phantom party, was like the best reunion I've ever been to. It was people that I've loved forever. Some of them I hadn't seen in 20 years, but we just hugged each other. I mean, it was exhilarating, one after another, to see these people. And it was, yeah, like that great reunion of your people that you've grown up with. So that's, and I love that. But I kind of want to live in New York anymore. I love living out here in California. I love having my house and a yard and the dog, and I just grew out of my need to want to live. I like going there. I like going and working or seeing people, but I think I'm happier. This is yeah, we're pretty content out here, and I still travel quite a bit, so it's enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyhow, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.